Well, it's going to be the last brew day of the year here. And as I was thinking about that, I thought, I really want to have a stout on for the holidays. And lo and behold, what came in on the Spike Brewing weekly bulletin was Ryan and Adam's Oatmeal Stout that they were pretty proud of. So it's pretty darn good. So first things first, if you don't get that bulletin, you may want to check it out. I'll put a link down in the description and you can subscribe if you want. It's got a lot of really good brewing information on it, well above and beyond just the discussion around their equipment, which clearly I'm a big fan of. Didn't really plan it that way, it just kind of evolved. Anyway, back to the recipe. So I looked at it, and the one thing I noticed right away is it had a lot of grains from a maltster that I probably would not be able to get a hold of. And so what I wanted to do was definitely take advantage and use only the materials I could get at my local brew shop. And so I went down and talked to John, and we crafted together a similar recipe to what Ryan and Adam did over there at Spike. Put it together. What I'm going to do in this video is compare those two recipes with you, go through them kind of quickly, and then at the end, of course, what really counts is how did it come out. So stick around. If you like a good stout, in particular an oatmeal stout, I think you're going to enjoy this video. So let's dive right in and talk about the recipe a bit. First thing I want to point out is theirs, which is listed on the right, is for a 5-gallon batch. Mine, on the left, is really a 10-gallon batch that after all said and done yielded about 9 gallons of finished beer. So let's start with the hops, because that's about the easiest one, because it's pretty much a 1-for-1 straight over. Nugget and Fugel, I was just able to bump up my quantity, and we matched up spot on right there. The next thing I'm going to talk about is the yeast. They used Imperial's Darkness. Now, I hadn't used that yeast before, but I have used a lot of Flagship. I was under a time crunch, and I needed this beer done, and Flagship will actually just ferment like crazy. And so I knew I could get done with that, with my deadline, and so that's why I stuck with it. So the other thing that we can look at here are the grains. And this is where things really are a bit different. Because again, I don't have access to proximity. They are a maltster that doesn't distribute up here. So what I had to do is go with something that I felt was similar. So if you look at the base malt, instead of just a basic 2-row, I use Mecca Grade La Manta, which they describe as a foundation malt. It is a very rich and wonderful base malt to use. And so I thought, okay, for a beer like this, that'd be a nice touch. Moving down the list, they have Proximity Red. I don't have access to that, so I went with my go-to, Munich. When in doubt, use Munich. That's sort of my mantra. Because of that, though, instead of using the Crystal 30, I wanted to bump up the color a bit, so I used some Crystal 40. That's the only reason that one's different. As far as the malted oat content goes, I use Simpson's Golden Naked Oats. I've used it before. I really enjoy that. And again, I could not get the proximity oat that Ryan and Adam used. And so I felt this was a reasonable substitute. The last two things on the list, the chocolate and roasted barley, easy enough and very readily available. And so I matched those up 1-for-1 as well. Now, I will make a comment to my recipe. When all said and done, and after drinking quite a bit of this, I would back off on that roasted barley just a bit. You know, it's interesting. It really carries a lot of punch to it. And it's one of those where, I don't know, less is better, maybe. That'd be the only thing that I would give a knock about. One other thing worth pointing out. If you look at their system, the efficiency was 64%. I didn't notice that when I first put this together, trying to match theirs. My efficiencies tend to be right around that 78%. And these are measured, by the way. They're not just calculated. And so because of that, my gravities were higher and my ABV winds up 1% higher than theirs. Not going to break my heart over that. Not quite an Imperial Oatmeal Stout, but definitely a fortified one. We can leave it at that. Final comment. You can see in the general notes, they put theirs on a nitro tap, push the beer with nitrogen.
or beer gas. I did something a little different, and you'll see that when we get back to the video. So that's a summary of the recipes. Both, solid as could be. I wish I could have tried theirs, but perfectly happy with mine. Now let's get back to the video.
We reviewed the recipes, similar in notion, some differences to them, but what really counts is how does the beer come out. So let's grab a glass and we'll talk about it. If you noticed in Ryan and Adam's presentation, they use their beer on a nitro tap. And that's fun, but I decided to go even further and put it on my beer engine here, my cask pump. As a side note, the very first video I did for YouTube was on assembling this and how to use it, because there was no information out there on how to do that. That many years ago. I'll put a link up here or in the description, and it's kind of fun to watch. Enough of that, let's pour a beer and talk about it. Just pumping it right out of the keg. There you go. That is a nice hand-pumped beer. Let's take an evaluation here. Okay, so first things first, the color is more of a dark brown versus jet black. The nose has that nice roast character to it, but not overpowering by any stretch. Oh, it's nice and smooth. I'll tell you, that oatmeal really kind of softens it and makes this a very drinkable beer. Oh my, and at 7%, maybe too drinkable. So there you have it. Two different recipes, both I'd say very worthy of trying. Remember, in mine, it's scaled up to a 10-gallon batch, so be careful with that. You might need to scale it down if you're going to go that way. But big thanks to Spike for sharing their information. And a really big thanks to my subscribers and viewers. The last video here of 2023. I look forward to seeing you all in 2024. We'll brew some more beer and have some more fun.